What's up everyone, Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic, and I have another collection update for you. Been doing a lot of these here lately, but I think the mail is starting to catch up a bit. So a lot of this stuff is kind of showing up at once. And this one's interesting because I think it's mostly EPs in here, and there are two labels that I got batches from, Pulverized Records and Maggot Stomp. So there's a little bit more towards their labels on this, but of course all sorts of other random stuff that I picked up, and let's just get right into it. First up, we have a split from Ripped to Shreds and Brain Corrosion, Exhumed from Eastern Tombs. Now, this came out on Horror, Pain, Gore, Death Productions, and this is, I guess you could say, both related to Ripped to Shreds. Ripped to Shreds is, one-man death metal, thrash metal. It's kind of a hybrid Swedish death metal sort of act. Their last album was on my year-end list. Luan is absolutely amazing. Brain Corrosion actually features a member of at least Ripped to Shreds in their live capacity. Of course, in the studio, it's just one guy. Now, the Brain Corrosion side, Jesus, man, these guys are like fiercely old school grind, death grind. A lot of it reminded me of Terrorizer and like early Brutal Truth. Just nuts. I like the alternating high and low vocals. It is murky sounding. I don't necessarily like the snare. It has kind of that plunky snare, but musically I really just got into these guys. They're just kind of feral. They have 8 tracks on their side, and they are pretty much just like bullet training grind right there. A couple of samples from, I would guess, Taiwanese horror movies. They sound pretty appropriate in there, but really, really enjoyed their side. I'm definitely looking for more. Unfortunately, all they have are EPs, and when it comes down to CDs, they're a little bit harder to find in terms of their stuff, but I'm going to do some rooting around because I really like them. And with Ripped to Shreds, we have one original song, Rotting Stenches Unknown, which is absolutely awesome. And then we have 3 covers. They cover Asocial, Ass Suck, and Gridlink, and all really well done. I absolutely love Ripped to Shreds just in terms of their style, this sort of hybrid of, death metal, namely Swedish death metal and thrash. He always includes some catchy melodies and like really cool lead work. Awesome stuff. This is a cool little like one-off. I kind of wish there was more original material by Ripped to Shreds, but I can't really complain because what I got was still absolutely awesome. So yeah, definitely check this out. This is an absolutely fun split. Dehuman Rain, Ascending from Below. I reviewed their newest album, courtesy of Screaming Toilet, and I absolutely fell in love with this band's sound. So I got their first album, and oh man, this one's might be my favorite of the 2 so far. I absolutely love this band style. It is thrashy, gritty death metal, lots of like Vader worship, but kind of like a Morbid Angel like atmosphere. The riffs, my god, the riffs on here are absolutely amazing. The triplet chug on Garden of Decay alone was pretty much worth it. Like, it's just everything I love about death metal. It kind of reminded me when I like first started getting into it. This album is just non-stop old school thrashy death metal. This has such a fierce 90s feel. If I was a teenager and heard this, like if this actually came out in the 90s, I would have lost my shit. I kind of did lose my shit anyway when I heard death metal, but I would have lost my shit more. Absolutely incredible release. Definitely check out this band. Check out their new release too. It's amazing as well. Ah, man, I can't wait for more stuff from them, and they just released something last year, so yeah, I gotta be patient, I guess, but absolutely amazing album. Definitely check this out. Oxalate, Infatuating Sickness EP. I actually heard about these guys courtesy of a 4-way split with Vivisect. I believe it was also on Horror, Pain, Gore, Death Productions, which that's what this is on. This is a New Jersey / New York based death metal act. Fierce autopsy vibes. These guys love everything old school and murky. 4 tracks. This is just a no bullshit EP. Loads of groove. There's some punky D-beat sections on here that are really fun. Very much like a demo quality sound, but I like it. It adds something. It's murky. It's kind of disgusting. Short offering, but I liked every single track on here, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more from these guys. So this is definitely one on my radar for the future, and this just came out last year. So yeah, definitely check this out if you're looking for some nasty, raw, old school death metal that sounds like it was recorded inside of a mausoleum. That is pretty damn close. Check it out. Hallows Eve, Tales of Terror. This is the 2021 reissue of their debut album. This band was an Atlanta-based thrash / speed metal band. Always kind of flew under the radar for me. I saw them on samplers for Metal Blade like way back, and I just kind of never picked up on them. My bad, because this is really good. This is actually the only full length I own by them, and I may have to change because I really enjoyed this. This is like that kind of just 80s thrash sound, speed metal. It's interesting because it kind of sounds too dark to be speed metal necessarily, but it has the more 80s wailing on it and more nods to classic heavy metal, so it kind of fits more in speed metal. But the dark atmosphere again, like Slayer and Flotsam and Jetsam kind of combined. That's kind of the most basic, description I could give it. Love the riff work on here, love the melodies. The melodies especially, they have those fierce 80s heavy metal, like Iron Maiden, Angel Witch sort of vibes, but again, heavier. And of course, some flat out punk influence because, you need a little bit of that punk energy in there. Now this does include a bunch of bonus tracks, including like rehearsal covers. They're kind of muddy, but they do some fun ones like Scream of the Night, Exciter, Alice Cooper's 18. Again, muddy, kind of murky, but it kind of adds something when it comes down to a reissue. Solid remaster too. It sounds really good, but it still sounds gritty, very much like an 80s metal album should. Definitely a killer re-release. I'm going to have to get some more of their stuff. Maybe they're actually re-releasing the rest of them. I'm not entirely sure. This just kind of popped up at the record store. I was like, you know what? I've always been meaning to actually get that. So I got it. So yeah, definitely check it out if you've never actually heard this. Horsehunter. This is their self-titled album from 2019, and this is a doom, sludge, stoner metal, almost kind of post-metal in spots. It's slow, it's sludgy, it's very atmospheric, but very riffy. I picked this one up on a whim, mostly because, I just looked at the cover and I like the logo, and when I heard this, it has all those elements. It's really interesting because you get very, doom-laden sections. There's some sections that kind of scream like nasty sludge metal, Crowbar, I Hate God, and even this hardcore sections, but lots of kind of neurosis atmosphere on here. Either way, what you're greeted to is a wall of just ugly, sludgy riffs, and I really liked it. I really like the production. Their overall sound is really good. The vocals are kind of like a hardcore-ish bark. This is my first exposure to this band. It's murky, it's dense, it's ugly, it's everything I like about sludge, stoner, and doom metal. So yeah, definitely check this band out if you're looking for just a wall of sound in terms of just murkiness. This good stuff. Desolator, Sermon of Apathy. This is their second album, came out on Black Lion Records, and this is, one of the albums I got in the Metalhead box. Said Swedish death metal on it, and of course, generally when I think Swedish death metal, I think Dismember, Entombed, all that stuff. This is different. This is not that Swedish death metal. It is death metal from Sweden that sounds more akin to old school death metal kind of in general, or at least from the States, Autopsy, Death, mixed with Suffocation, and maybe a little bit of melodic death metal. These guys definitely love atmosphere in terms of melodies and just their overall sound. It screams more dense. It's not as raw and primal. It definitely gets heavy. It's heavier than hell. But I think the fact that they got Carl Sanders on here for a solo, I believe is on the last track, which, yeah, if you got Carl Sanders on here, it might sound a little more epic and, Egyptian. The song is called The Great Law of the Dead, and that definitely sounds like a Nile title. If I had to compare this to an old school Swedish death metal band, I would say it's more like Seance, except with more atmosphere and a little bit more towards modern death metal now, Hideous Divinity. Really good stuff. I enjoyed this. It was kind of a surprise. It took me a little bit to get past the fact that I wasn't hearing an HM2 big snarling tone, but I enjoyed what I heard, and this is a really solid release, and I definitely want to check out more by him. So, definitely check this out. Dale Krover, Rat-a-Tat-Tat. This is Dale Krover's new solo album, just came out this year on Joyful Noise Music, and this is just interesting. It's odd. It's Melvins related, so yeah, it's gonna be odd. He actually includes some members and ex-members of Red Cross and Big Business on here, and the drum work is absolutely awesome because Dale Krover's an amazing drummer. He's not the best singer, but he is good in terms of just doing that kind of oddball 90s experimental, alternative. This isn't Sonic Youth and all that stuff. It's still kind of heavy and stonery and sludgy in some spots, but it's still more focused on strange, almost avant-garde rock. There's a lot of different instruments on here. There's like mouth harps, there's a variety of different percussion. It's a strange listen, but I did enjoy it. I've never actually listened to any of his other stuff, like in terms of Dale Crover's solo stuff. I've been listening to Melvin since I was a teen. But this is an interesting listen. It's going to take more listens for me to really like latch onto it, because I don't know, the entire time I was listening to this, it kind of just reminded me of like the strange stuff that, you know, Buzzo does on his own. It's an odd listen, but I'm going to venture into it more. But if you're looking for something that is just strange, then definitely check this out, because it is. Gorgasm, Stab Wound Intercourse EP. This is the reissue of their 1998 debut EP on Severed Records, and I love Gorgasm. They're honestly one of my favorite straight-up brutal death metal bands. These guys still pretty much embody that brutality with hooks sort of thing that I like with bands like Suffocation and Dying Fetus. Pummeling drum work, absolutely tight as hell on here. Big, massive, chuggy riffs. I like the vocals on here too. They're not all like pig squeals. They alternate between like good death metal roars, occasional screams. And it's just a solid, nasty, brutal EP. And I'm still missing their newest one. That's about it from Gorgasm in terms of stuff that I'm missing. Now this actually includes their original demos on here too as bonus tracks. And I have to say the demos sounded really good. Some of the demo versions of songs on here I actually kind of liked in a different way compared to the more polished ones. And I think the more polished ones in terms of like the actual EP sound a bit better, but I like the raw quality. It kind of like took me back to like the early Suffocation, early Dying Fetus sound. Absolutely awesome EP, absolutely kind of questionable album art. That's going to be censored, don't worry. Hopefully the glare is covering up any unmentionables on here. Anyway, definitely check this out if you're looking for just awesome brutal death metal. Humanity is Cancer, self-titled EP. This came out last year on Redefining Darkness Records, and I picked this up on a whim, and lo and behold, I had no idea that this is a new band for Lyle Cooper, former drummer of The Faceless. That dude is still an absolutely amazing drummer. This band also features current and former members of Abigail Williams, Aborted, Nunslaughter, and Hellmouth. So all bands that I'm very familiar with, and that pretty much cemented it. But I bought this without knowing any of that. I just picked it up because the album cover is cool, and I know Redefining Darkness. They put out some killer stuff. They've even actually released some bands from Toledo here. This is dense, ugly, atmospheric, modern death metal, but it's gritty. Like, take like the heaviest aspects of like early Gojira and like Rivers of Nile, but just bring it down to its most brutal roots. None of the, you know, clean vocals or anything sing-songy on here. This is all about brutality and atmosphere, dissonant riffing, pummeling breakdowns. The drum work is just sick on here. I mean, it's Lyle. I expected that. I would definitely compare this to a band like Hour of Penance for sure. I love it. It's still technical but groove-laden. There are giant breakdowns in here. Absolutely whoop-ass EP. Only 4 tracks, but they're all pummeling. The last track is especially good, though. But yeah, definitely check this out. I missed this one in terms of last year. This could have been on my EP list. This is that good. So yeah, definitely check it out. Altar, Dark Domains. Now this is a compilation that came out in 2012 on Pulverized and Conquer Records with a K. This was a Swedish death metal band from the 90s. They only existed from 1990 to 1995, and this is pretty much a compilation of, I believe, their Lone Split and a litany of demos. And this is absolutely awesome old school death metal. It's Swedish death metal, but it doesn't have all of the, like, you know, HM2 sound. Again, you know, kind of a theme here, I guess, in terms of, oh, it's Swedish death metal, it's going to sound like this. And it doesn't. But I really liked what I heard. This is actually very similar to, like, you know, early Finnish death metal, honestly. Now, one time, the frontman for this band was Mitsko. I think that's how you say his name. You know, the former frontman, principal songwriter for Nosum that sadly passed away in 2004. He's only on, I believe, 2 of the tracks on here, and he was only in there for a short time before forming Nosum. But overall, I really enjoyed this. It has a very raw sound because these are mostly demos, but they did a really good job cleaning them up, and they didn't, like, strip away all the grit. It actually still sounds raw and nasty, but well produced. Bass work on here is really good too. Like, the bass is actually kind of up in the mix in a lot of the songs. Now, Some of the songs toward the end, in terms of like the 2 different demo versions, I really didn't care for. You know, the drums had like an odd sound to them, but overall, this was a really solid listen. I picked this one up on Pulverized Records. This is the first one of that batch. I looked it up on YouTube and jammed it and was like, wow, this is really good. I've never actually heard of this. So lo and behold, I was actually able to find this on Pulverized's website, and bam, here it is. So yeah, if you're looking for some cool old school death metal that's kind of under the radar, definitely check this out. This is absolutely loaded, and you have like 17 tracks on here too, so there is a ton of material on here. Check it out. My Own Grave Unholy. This is the lone EP from this Swedish death thrash, death metal. I don't know. It's kind of a hybrid between the two. It depends on which release too. I have their other 2 full lengths, and sometimes they're thrashier in hell, sometimes they're more death metal focused. This is kind of a balance. Very similar to Vader and The Crown in terms of that blend of the 2 styles. It's fast, it is aggressive, but it is catchier in hell. The song God Forbid, tons and tons of hooks in that song. The riffing on here is just chuggy and aggressive at all times. We've got some fun punkish moments on here. Beneath Dark Waves, I think, is particularly badass on here. Lots of catchy melodies, but again, aggression. It is just flying at all times. You have some nice groovy breakdowns. For the most part, this is blast beats and thrash gallops, and I absolutely dug it. This pretty much completes all their studio releases for me. I have their other 2 albums again, and those are both really good. Underrated band. I would definitely like to hear more from them. They are still around. It's just been a while since their last release, so I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe they got bored during COVID and decided, hey, let's just write an album. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, definitely check this out because it's a solid EP. Under the Church. It's their self-titled debut EP from 2014 on Pulverized Records. This is the last one from the Pulverized batch, and the last one that I needed in terms of studio releases from this band. This is flat out Swedish death metal, and this is the Swedish death metal that I was thinking of in terms of Swedish death metal. Grimy HM2 sound. It's dirty, filthy, nasty. Ugh. All the right adjectives on this one. Now this also features current and former members of General Surgery and Nirvana 2002, and it's just old school love. Very much in the realm of like Entombed, Dismember, all that. It's got punky D beats. Again, the guitar tone is just filth and murk. When I saw the song titled Digging in the Dirt, I actually did wonder to myself if they were going to do a Swedish death metal version of the Peter Gabriel song. No, it's their own dirt. They're digging in very different dirt than Peter. Absolutely awesome EP, kind of a longer EP too. It's 7 tracks, but I mean, this is just whoop ass left and right. I absolutely love this EP. I love their other 2 releases that I have, and again, I'd like to hear more from them. So yeah, definitely check this out if you were looking for dirty, filthy Swedish death metal, because that is this. Check it out. Sentenced. Shadows of the Past. I finally got a copy of this, and they cracked it in the mail, but whatever. This is the 2019 re-release of this album and remaster. It was actually released on Cosmic Key Creations and Century Media, and this is their debut album, Finnish death metal, and this band would drastically change with subsequent releases, but this is the one that I wanted because this is old school death metal glory. I absolutely love this album. I've actually jammed it before, of course, on YouTube, and I was like, man, I gotta find a copy of that. And then I looked up the prices on original copies, like, that's gonna be a bit much. Luckily, I found this one, and this was still kind of pricey, at least when it came down to shipping, because, shipping. I love the songwriting on here. It is nice and varied. There are loads of melodic hooks. It's a touch folky in spots, but not overtly folky to the point where you would call it folk metal. It's just like, oh, that melody is a little folky. It is all about just huge death metal riffs, loads of dynamics. This is an absolutely amazing album, and again, I kind of wish they would stuck with this style, but I mean, this kind of tracks along the same lines as Amorphous. Their early stuff was more straight up, Finnish death metal. It had that kind of murky, almost death doomy sound, and then they kind of moved on to other avenues. Now this band would break up in, I think, 2005 after, years of being, I don't even really know what to consider them, like melodic death metal or goth rock, or I don't know. It wasn't this. And this is the sentence that I definitely really appreciated. Super happy I got this finally. It's, again, an absolute underground death metal gem from the 90s. Definitely check this out if you've never heard this. This is absolutely killer. Check it out. 200 Stab Wounds, Piles of Festering Decomposition. This is their debut EP. This is a death metal act from Cleveland. Yay. Came out on Maggot Stomp. This is pretty much kicking off all the Maggot Stomp stuff I got. And Jesus, this is good. This is like old school death metal, old school brutal death metal maybe. Like, it reminds me a lot of like early Broken Hope, early Suffocation. Definitely a lot of stuff like that. But it also kind of has like the same appeal as a band like Gatecreeper. It is groove laden, old school, lots of breakdowns. There's a bit of hardcore energy to it. And my God, this is just a ferocious EP. I have to say, I particularly liked the fact that they included a sample from the movie Psycho on She Was Already Dead. And I like the fact they threw in a Carcass cover, Ruptured in Purulence, which I believe is exclusive to the physical media. I don't think the downloads actually had this one available. Vocals on here are nasty. They're not like pig squeals, but they're, I don't know, very cavernous. There's a lot of reverb on them, but they are powerful. I really just flat out dig them. They kind of remind me of Outer Heaven in terms of their style of vocals. Now, I believe this band is working on a full length this year, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a Maggot Stomp. I think they got picked up by a bigger label, and I definitely want to hear it because this EP is absolutely nasty. Definitely check this out if you are looking for something exceptionally brutal and short, but mostly just brutal. Awesome stuff. Definitely check it out. And finally, we have a pair from Unurnment. We have Spiritual Penury and Self-Immolation Suite. This came out in 2019 and 2020. They are both EPs, and they're both a little bit different. Now, this is a one-man death metal project from one of the guitarists from Primal Rite, which is a straight-up crossover thrash band. I forgot his name. Probably should have wrote it down. Sorry, dude. But you write some killer death metal. This is like very 90s Floridian death metal, but with like a little bit of like incantation, like cavernous spots. Absolutely love it. And these are both very different EPs. Style-wise, they're pretty similar, but this one is 3 tracks. This one's 5, but they're both the same length. So we got shorter tracks on here, longer tracks on here, different production too. I'm not entirely sure if he's playing the drums on this. It might be a drum machine, but it has a very natural sound, but I like the sound of them better on here. This is a little bit more polished sounding. This definitely a bit more raw, but god damn, this guy can write. Loads of killer riffs, lots of really cool harmonies, some really cool lead work on here. Big dynamic shifts in mood. I would say this one's a little bit more atmospheric. I want to say there's like a giant Death Doom section on here. I think it's the 3rd track. It just kind of breaks into that, you know, murky incantation sound with like twisted samples, sobbing and burning. I don't know, it's pretty disturbing sounding actually. Both of these are absolutely amazing EPs. I'm looking forward to hearing a full length from this dude because this is just killer. The writing on here is spot on. It's pretty much up there with everything I love about death metal. So yeah, way to go. Check out both of these releases. If you just see one, get the other one too, because they're both great. Why deprive yourself of really good new death metal? And, you know, this is a one-man project, so who knows? He might be busy right now writing another EP. Who knows? Or maybe a full length. Again, 2020 was a hell of a down year. Why not write more music? So yeah, definitely check out both of these. They are both absolutely incredible. All right, well, that knocks out another one of these. Still waiting on more stuff in the mail. I just ordered a bunch of stuff from Redefining Darkness just because that Humanity is Cancer was so damn good. And we'll see what trips to the record store actually yield. And of course, make sure to check out the fact that we have a giveaway going on. Once we hit 4,500 subs, we're going to give away a boatload of music. If you haven't checked that out, it should be the first video playing on our channel, and all you got to do is comment. You comment, and we'll do a sub randomizer, and one of you will win a stack of cool music. So yeah, definitely get in on that. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We will catch you later.